Hey authority hackers, welcome to this week's podcast episode. In this episode, we are going to be sharing our favorite Chrome extensions with Mark. Now, some of them you might know already, and that's fine, but we'll also tell you how we use them exactly in our process. But some of them I'm sure you don't know about, and they're going to be saving lots of time or lots of money, because actually all of these extensions are free. A lot of them might be freemium, so like they might try to sell you a more expensive plan or something, but we kind of like design this podcast so that you don't have to pay for anything to get value, and that is something that I think a lot of you guys will appreciate. So let's get started with the episode, and don't forget to subscribe and like if you like that kind of stuff where we share the tools we use. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Authority Hacker Podcast. We had a lot more downloads than usual last week, or like 2 weeks ago rather. So thank you for everyone who joined on this one. I guess the topic kind of how we talked about the last Google core update and findings and things that people have observed in the community and so on. So if you missed that one, you can go check it out. I just wanted to make a quick update and say that apparently a lot of this has been rolled back. Actually, a lot of people have been commenting that they lost rankings at the beginning of the update and it came back. Happened to one of our sites actually. We're now back higher than we were just before the beginning of the update. And a lot of people in H Pro have confirmed that this happened to them as well. So it looks like one of these updates where Google was not exactly happy with what they got. And I don't think they canceled everything. Like some people didn't come back, but quite a few people did. So that's kind of a good news. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to update people.
I actually have an update on that before you asked me how it's going.
I was going to say, that's not how we do things here,
It's going fine. Thanks for asking. So I was talking to a couple of people about this, and you'd mentioned this featured snippet ban. But have you come across the people also ask ban as well? Because someone showed me their site, and they basically went from having a few hundred per day to zero, which felt like a ban. But then they sent me this link to another YouTube video, and someone was talking about it being potentially some kind of bug or error on Google's side. So maybe that's part of the rollback. I don't know. But I just thought it was an interesting angle to it as well.
I think this is one of these occasions, and it happens, right, where Google really did roll back a significant portion of what happened. And I think what it shows as well is that these updates are not just one thing. Because if they were just one thing, a rollback could only be 100% rollback almost. Like, you'd see everything come back or something. Like the fact that, I think what Google does is they batch like 10, 15 updates together. They roll everything out together. And then maybe now they cancel 6 out of 15 or something. And then that's what we're seeing, a partial rollback, and we're seeing some people come back, some people not come back, etc. Because they kind of like make it more confusing by releasing everything together at once. And maybe it's also more efficient for their workflow, actually. Like maybe they're not trying to play a game. Maybe it's just like easier for them to roll it out like this, But like I think it shows to people that these are not like, oh, it's targeting AI content or it's targeting backlinks or something. It's probably targeting a lot of things at once. And this partial rollback is kind of like an argument for that, at least I would say. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about today. Today we're talking about something a little bit lighter. I feel like it's nice to like do a lighter episode after we've done a more heavy one on updates and so on. And that one is going to be still very useful for a lot of people because
this one.
Yes, this one. So Mark is obsessed with me making this mistake.
I want people to comment every time Gael says this or that the wrong way around. Like, because I swear he just does it deliberately now.
Can you imagine how much more social engagement we get from this? It's like we get.
But then maybe that incentivizes you to keep doing it, and that's not a good thing. So
yeah, I'm just making the world a worse place. It's one diss at a time, Anyway, today we're talking about our favorite Chrome extensions. I've used so many. Like, I love tools. Mark knows because I subscribe to all of them, and then he comes after me and he tells me to unsubscribe from all of the ones I don't use. So I tried a lot. Probably tried hundreds at this point over my entire marketing career. Before we jump into the Chrome extensions, though, I want to say that you should only keep the ones that you're actively using on, because they tend to use quite a bit more RAM, and also they, people can put tracking codes in them as well, so they can start tracking you. Usually people do that to create retargeting audiences, like they're not really trying to get your passwords or anything like this. But it has happened before that there was keyloggers in extensions. I don't think these ones do, but in general, it uses computer resources. So if your computer gets hot generally, if your computer gets slow generally when you're using your browser, etc., there's a chance that having too many Chrome extensions could be part of that. And so in general, it's good to be kind of like minimal about this. And now you have this little puzzle piece thing, and you can click on this Manage Extension button and like just click on the toggles of the ones you're actively using right now or not. So for example, before I start doing keyword research, I tend to activate some extensions and deactivate some, like the ones I use for content, for example, and vice versa, so that you don't fight for performances and you don't fight for battery life on your computer. So I just wanted to say that because we're going to give lots of extensions. It doesn't mean you should have them all at once, unless you don't care about this stuff. Should we get started? Do you want to do one, I do one?
Sure.
Should I start?
Sure.
Okay. So the first one I'm going to start with is going to surprise quite a few people. It's going to be Ubersuggest. And the reason I say that is because Ubersuggest is, from what I've found, the extension that gives the most SEO data out of most of them, because they give you the estimated traffic on the search results. And so if you are not someone who wants to pay for Ahrefs anymore because it's like out of your budget or something like this, you can actually get some of that data, which is pretty accurate. Ubersuggest came second, I think, when you did that test on these SEO tools, right?
Yeah, so it's really good data.
Yeah, so you do get some through their interface on the tool, but you also get a bunch of data through their Chrome extension. So they give you, search volume, CPCs. They give you as a SERP overlay, and they also show you the traffic of all the pages, their domain authority, not rating. So they use the Moz metrics, but it's still okay. And most importantly, it's all free, right? So it's kind of like, if you're kind of like going for like a cheap tool, like you're using Mangools or something like that, for example, then it's a really good complementary extension that's going to give you maybe better traffic estimates than Mangools would give you, for example, if you use Substat or if you use another one. So I think it's not, personally I use Ahrefs still at this point, because Ahrefs is still the best data, but a lot of people are finding themselves in that situation where they need another tool because they either run off credit of Ahrefs or they just use other tools because it's becoming quite expensive, to be honest. So I just wanted to throw that one in. It's decent. And it's like, love him or hate him, Neil Patel did an okay SEO tool, especially for the price they charge, actually.
Yeah, it's a common tactic that a lot of the tools we're going to talk about, or a lot of the extensions we're going to talk about today,
it's freemium, right?
They basically give away some stuff for free in their plugins, so that you get used to the ecosystem and eventually upgrade and buy a higher tier package. But that's fine, because if you just want to use the free data, then you can get a lot of stuff out of Ubersuggest, much more than you can from Ahrefs plugin, for example. So
if you were like stripping if you were stripping like all our tools and I had to start with no money, like I would install that, like when I do keyword research, I would install that extension, type the keywords, and like look at the traffic numbers of the pages when I evaluate the keyword, because this number is not just for that one keyword, it's for all the keywords that page ranks for. So it gives you an idea. It's a really good way to evaluate whether it's worth going after it or not. And you can do this for free now, so it's kind of cool. Like it's not as good as Ahrefs, not as efficient, but if you're getting started, good enough, basically. Go ahead.
Okay, next one is Tag Assistant by Google. So it's a very, very simple tool extension. Install it and you can see what analytics, what GTM tags are firing on any site. And yeah, it's just a really good tool to verify that you've set everything up correctly, that the right things are firing and everything's working.
It's quite interesting as well when you do some proper tag manager setup. So for example, there's a plugin on WordPress called, I think it's called Tag Manager by Tommy something. I will put it in on the screen, it's going to be easier because I don't remember. But it allows you, for example, to pass on dimensions to your analytics. So for example, you can pass on the author, you can pass on the tags of a post, you can pass on all these things. And then when you're in analytics, you can filter for these metrics. Like you can see the traffic per author, you can see the traffic per tag, etc. It allows you to be a little bit more slicey dicey with your data. And so that plugin, that extension allows you to actually see that all this stuff is passing on properly as well, and you can actually dig in. And so when you're doing like more in-depth stuff, like events as well, this kind of stuff, you can test it with that. So it's not just like, oh, my analytics is installed or something. Like when you go to the next level of analytics, when you do it properly, it becomes more useful even, I would say.
Yeah, I know the guys over at Measure School suggest this as like the first thing to do when you're getting started with all this, and they use it regularly to verify that everything they're doing is sort of working.
It's just like it's nicer to check that than going through the interface. And actually, I want to take another plugin that's kind of similar in that aspect, and that's the Google Analytics Page Analytics plugin extension. I call them plugin, but they're extension, guys. And that one is interesting as well because it shows you your Google Analytics basic data, so you can see the visits to a page, the bounce rate, etc., while you visit your website. So it's just going to pop like a ribbon on top. It's going to show you the stats, and then you can click on the button and open the stats for that page directly in Analytics if you want to dig deeper. But again, Google Analytics can be intimidating for people. A lot of people don't use it correctly. I mean, from our days in agencies, I still remember jumping on the call with clients and they just show me, look, it's not going up and right. That must be wrong. And I'm like, did you actually go into any submenu? Nope. And it's like, okay. So it's like a lot of people are not very good at this. This makes Google Analytics a little bit less intimidating. Just know that it's all traffic, not just organic. So if you get traffic from social, if you get traffic from email, etc., you will see it in these graphs. But if you actually open it in Analytics and then you just filter traffic source, then you can see your organic traffic, for example. So it is a cool. It's a cool plugin as well. Like really, when I'm kind of like, I like to like take the pulse of our websites with this, it's like I kind of like go around our main pages. I just have them bookmarked and I just click on them. It loads the data and I can just dig deeper, or if there was some sudden changes or something. It's one of the ways and one of the extensions I quite like using actually. So that's it.
The next one is, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this correctly, AMA Path Redirect Extension. And basically, if you're getting redirected through 301, 302 or whatever, it will track all of the intermediate redirects and see where you've kind of been passed to. It's useful to see like kind of like what's going on. But I remember, was it a year or two ago, you posted this video where you could sort of like backwards analyze the, what was it again?
The affiliate links. So a lot of sites, they have /recommend /something, for example. Like they cloak their affiliate links. And so you throw it in there, and usually you get sent to a tracking domain, but sometimes that tracking domain redirects you as well, right? So you want the domain that's like sandwiched in the middle. Because if you throw that one in like Ahrefs, for example, you find all the sites promoting their affiliate offer, for example, right? And you can find a lot of like hidden things. So for example, very often I'm able to find networks of websites that way because I can also see like what sandwich tracking domains they use in between for these, and I'm able to like if they use like another layer of tracking with their own custom tracking domains, for example, and you can find all the you check that domain, you check all the sites that link to it, and you find all the websites that belong to that person or like that network or that company, and then you can kind of backward engineer that whole top high level affiliate structure rather than just like on a single site level. So it's quite powerful. Basically, it allows you to see like what people don't want you to see. It's quite interesting, and again, if you throw any affiliate link inside Ahrefs, you can find any website that will promote it, and it's like I think that's one of our most popular YouTube videos actually. So you can find some of that with that extension. You don't necessarily need the extension though. It's one of these things where it's like it's useful, but like again, I would probably use it like 1 day of the year or 2 days of the year when I'm really doing that research. There are websites that do that as well. If you search for like a redirect analyzer, for example, you can just throw links in there and then not install an extra extension. So it's okay if you're really doing it that day. It's fine if you want to walk through extensions. Some of the extensions I have, don't worry, they're the same. So it's not just criticism towards you, but like but that's one of these things where you want to balance what you install as an extension and what you use as a website that is not a permanent resource drag on your computer, actually. Okay. Anything else on this one?
Nope.
So the next one is going to be Keyword Surfer by Surfer SEO. Again, this is free. You don't have to be a subscriber or Surfer. And they give you some like classic SEO data, a little bit like Ubersuggest, like I mentioned earlier, but they also do article briefs, basically. They give you the top headlines of the people that rank all in like one brief, and you're able to like essentially create article outlines a little bit faster. It's a very toned down version of their paid tool, but again, if you wanted a tool that helps you outline your content, save a little bit of time without having to pay for any on-page tool, then that is an extension that I would recommend you check out. I think they give you some AI stuff in there as well, but I'm not sure I would use the AI content from Surfer, let's be honest. I know they try to market it, but that's, I don't think it's very good. However, the headlines that they give you are quite handy, and it can save you quite a bit of time because it analyzes like the top 10 results and so on for you. So if you want an extension that does that, you can use that one actually.
Okay, the next one is the Hunter or Email Hunter Chrome extension. So Hunter offer everyone knows what Hunter is. It's a tool where you can put in any domain and find out all the email addresses associated with it. So they have a Chrome extension, which just makes that process a little bit easier. Again, rather than having to go to the site, put it in, it's just there. So when you're browsing around, perhaps you're doing some prospecting, you can just click the button and it sort of highlights if it's found any email addresses for that domain. Click the button and you can pull out any emails it finds, and you can use that for link building or whatever other purposes you want to get in touch. The free plan has 25 searches at the moment. They reduced that from 50 I think last year, but has 25 free ones at the moment, which you can use per month. So it's not bad. If you're doing any kind of serious link building, you'll need a bigger plan, but yeah, it's good for a free tool, especially if you're just getting started, or especially if you're doing kind of very high targeted like sniper type outreach as well.
Yeah, I think it's more for that. It's like when you're not spamming a lot of sites, but rather you're just browsing the web, you're like, I really like to get in touch with these people.
Yeah.
Click the button, get the email. And for that, it's enough, to be honest.
It's also
the amount of
situations like outside link building. So you come across a website and maybe you want to like buy it or offer it, or, do some kind of different collab, stuff you're not doing every day. If you just want to use that 25 credits, you can stay on the free plan, and yeah, it's worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, again, like, these companies, they want to upsell you, but I think there's still lots of value to get for free if you kind of add up all these things that you never got this much for free in the past. Let's just say that, like, so it's like, while some stuff is more expensive, there's also a lot of free stuff. And talking about Hunter, link building, etc., I wanted to talk about a very old Chrome extension. I remember it from when I just started SEO, called Broken Link Checker. And that's a very simple extension that will crawl the page you're on and find broken links. But the reason I talk about this for link building is because if you want to start a conversation with someone, the most innocent way to do it is just be like, hey, I found a broken link on your site. Is this the right email? And it's like, you can just you can just click on that extension and always find a broken link on their website. So it's like, don't ask for anything. Just be like, hey, here's a broken link. Then wait a week, then email them. I think that's how we do it these days, broken link building or something. But like, that's an approach.
I'm not convinced. Like, I mean, if you're just trying to start a conversation with them,
yeah, it's not
else,
like to scale link building. It's not like build 100 links a month type thing. It's more like, it's an easy way to, if you have no other way to start a conversation, that's one way.
All right, next one is called Dimensions, and when you click on the little icon in your toolbar, a little kind of cross comes up, and you can move it around, and whatever element it's over, if it's, for example, in a box, the lines in that cross will extend till it hits like a different color pixel, like a line or a border, and then it will calculate the dimensions of an area that you've selected, which is really good if you've, for example, forgotten the size of one button and you need to create another one, or for image alignment or whatever else you want to do kind of design wise, or in Gutenberg especially, it can be quite useful for just getting a feel for the size of everything. So very simple tool, very totally free, and yeah, I'd recommend it.
Mark is a tyrant with that extension. He knows nothing about design, but the one thing he knows is using that extension.
I know nothing about design, but I know when stuff is not aligned. So I can't begin to tell you the amount of arguments and time we've had over if you go to the Authority Hacker homepage, there's a We're Featured In section with like 4 logos. The discussions we've had, it's still not perfect. It's far from it, actually. We kind of got into a pretty big argument about it, and we're like, okay, we just need to get the site out and we'll fix this later. But yeah.
So never.
Basically.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. So if you want to be a tyrant, just install that extension. It's a good one. Another thing I wanted to talk about, which is going to be like sounding very boring and very classic, and that's the Bitly Chrome extension. So Bitly is a link shortener. Google used to have one, but they shut it down. Actually, I used to use the Google one a long time ago. But Bitly is still around. But I don't really use it because I love shortening links. So it's like I don't care that much. But what I know is that, I talked about advanced analytics earlier, right? How we like track goals and events and everything. And one thing that you want to do is like, every time we share links on social media or like we do advertising, for example, etc., we do want to know where that traffic is coming from. So when we're doing like conversion tracking and so on, we can attribute this back to the original share, whatever, identify that and do more of it, right? So we know what actually drove a conversion or a sale or something. And so the way you do this is you actually add UTM parameters to the URLs you share normally. So you add, like, you've probably seen this around before, question mark UTM equals, and you put like campaign, you put content, etc., and you put equal, and you put some stuff like Twitter and whatever. And so that allows you to see this data inside Google Analytics, and then you can attribute it back to your conversions. The problem is it's freaking annoying to do these links and to just like tag everything you do all the time. But whenever you go back to analytics and we try to understand what actually worked and didn't work, when you didn't do it properly, you're going to sorely regret it. And that's why I like this extension, because this extension allows me to quickly add these UTM parameters to any URL I share without having to go to another tool or something like this. I just click the button, it takes the URL I'm on. I can add like, newsletter, email, and then whatever, like something like the name of the newsletter, for example, create the link, and bam, all my parameters are here. When we go and check our conversion reports, we know exactly which campaigns actually made us money, which ones were a flop. Let's do more of those that made money. Let's make more money. That's basically it. So that's a free extension that is kind of worth it, in my opinion.
It seems Bitly really won the link shortener wars then, now that even Google gave
There's
up
really
on
nobody else, right? It's like, you don't even have to pay for it, right? It's like, you can pay for it and like get a custom domain, right? If we're like not as cheap as we are, we get like the ahcr.co or something, and then like we just like make our custom shortened links or something. But I use the free version and it's completely fine, to be honest.
All right, so the next one is called Whatfont. So if you've ever seen a website and said, oh, that looks like a very nice font, I wonder what it is, get this plugin and it'll tell you. Simple.
Not only that, it tells you how big the font is and if it's bold, if it's thin, etc.
Which is useful. Which is useful if you are the type of person who just randomly bolds stuff every now and then for no apparent reason. And then you end up with a font which doesn't quite look the same when it's bold and it's not bold, and then someone changes it, and yeah, you get into all sorts of...
It's not just that. It's like if you're trying to replicate the feel of a page, like very often when you design a website, you have like a website, like 2 or 3 websites of reference you're going to look at for inspiration, right? And very often good designers use typography to really create a strong design, like the contrast between like how bold the title is to how thin the normal body font is, etc., matters, right? If you use the same fonts, it's just not going to feel the same. But quite often you can also do the same effect with different fonts, etc. So it's quite nice to just quickly be able to understand that and then just replicate that when you build your site. So overall, it's like whenever you're building landing pages, whenever you're designing sites, etc., it's a decent decent extension to use. I use it quite often as well, actually. My next one, talking about letters and stuff, I'm going to talk about Grammarly. I use the premium version. It's really good. As a non-native speaker, it fixes all my this and that issues, which makes Mark, probably extend Mark's life by a few years easily. So it's kind of worth it in that aspect. But what it does is it doesn't just fix your style. It doesn't just fix your spelling, but it actually fixes your style as well. If you're writing lengthy sentences with tons of commas, etc., like I used to do for a long time, it's going to fix it for you. But not only does it fix your content, but if you're actually paying attention to what it does, you can identify your mistakes and actually become a better writer, and eventually not need it as much, and for everything you do, be a better writer. So I quite like it. We are actually running an SEO test right now. In the previous episode, I talked about SEO tests. We're trying different levels on Grammarly. Grammarly gives you an overall score for a piece of content when you use it. That's not on the extension, that part. It's on the web app. And we're trying like, oh, what if we only publish content that's 95 and above? What if we go to 99, etc. In terms of scoring on Grammarly? Does it make a difference? Does it not make a difference? Does Google care about it? And I think they do a little bit. So I think overall, your site will have more commonalities with high quality sites if you have a good score on Grammarly than you don't. So it could be a very, very indirect ranking factor, but I emphasize the could here. It doesn't mean it is. It could be, but the closer you are to good size, the more likely you are to rank. So yeah.
All right, the next one is called LinkClump, and it allows you to drag a box over a group of links on any page, and then it will automatically identify that those are links, select them, and then you can control what you do with it. Either open all of them in new tabs, you can copy it to the clipboard, you can filter if there's certain words, filter out certain links, and just kind of manipulate things a lot. So for any kind of link prospecting, especially if you're trying to scrape SERP results, very, very useful tool indeed. And I'm going to go on to the next one straight away as well, because it's so similar. It's called Export Tabs. So if you're, for example, you're doing some prospecting and you're opening a bunch of sites, then you close the ones you don't want to contact. So you still got like, let's say 15 or 20 tabs open, and you want to get all of those URLs and say you're going to put it in a spreadsheet or whatever. If you use the Export Tabs plugin, it's going to give you a list. This little pop-out text box is going to give you a list of all the tabs you've got open. It will include the title, but you can turn that off, so you just end up with a URL list. And then you can, it's a text area, you can just copy and paste that into your prospecting sheet or whatever else you're doing with link building. But really useful tool, and the both of these kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah. My next one is Wappalyzer. I like the name, actually. It's pretty cool. But what it does is actually even cooler than the name. It's an extension that you can click when you visit any website, and it will find all the tools, technologies, etc. they are using in just one click. So, it's going to get the basics, like they're using WordPress, whatever, but it's also going to tell you, what WordPress theme they're using, what WordPress plugins they're using, etc. If I use it on Authority Hacker, for example, I can see we're using Opt-in Monster. I see we're using Cloudflare. It did find that we are using NitroPack as well, for example, for page speed. And it shows quite a lot of tools. And if you want to discover new tools, if a site's doing something cool, or if they're like a fast site, for example, you want to improve your page speed, it's a really cool place to be like, okay, how are these really fast sites doing this? What are they using for caching? What version of PHP are they using, etc. So I quite like it. There's really no point paying for it, kind of, as well. Like, that's one of those that's like not a freemium, but an actual, full product. And I really like it. So I would recommend you use that if you want to discover new tools. I know a lot of people like tools. If you're listening to that podcast, obviously you love tools. Want to find more? Install that extension.
This.
Okay. See, another 6 months of Mark's life again. So, all right, go for the next one.
I haven't used it, so.
And because Mark didn't add more to the list, I'm just gonna do the next ones as well. The next one that I'm gonna recommend is the Headline Studio by CoSchedule. So that was also a standalone tool, but now it's actually available as a Chrome extension. It's actually its own standalone tool as well now. You don't have to. It's outside of CoSchedule, but I'm not sure I would pay a ton of money for just a headline analyzer unless you have a really, really big site. But the free version is good enough, so you can write the headline you were thinking of using, for example, when you're writing your OG tags for social sharing, and it's going to score it. So it's going to give you a score between 0 and 100. It's going to tell you the kind of words that you're missing, the kind of words you're using too much, if it's too long, if it's too short, etc. And you can just type another version based on that feedback. It's going to score it again. Do it 5 times, take the one that has the highest score, and you will get overall a little bit more click-through rate on your headlines and so on. It's a good thing when you're writing sales pages, landing pages as well. If you're doing like not just SEO, but actual marketing stuff, subject lines for emails, that kind of stuff. You can use that tool, and it's going to help you do a better job, basically, without too much work. So I recommend use it. Usually the problem with CoSchedule is like all their tools are like full, but like super aggressive pop-ups and everything, and trying to upsell you on them. So it's a little annoying on that side. I'm not gonna hide it, but it's still a useful tool, and it's pretty well done.
It's also just worth remembering that with co-schedules, their headline analyzer, it's one of these things like the map is not the territory. It just by making something that has a higher score on according to their metric doesn't mean it's going to be a better headline necessarily. I mean, it's generally it is, but it's not something that's worth obsessing over.
Yeah, I agree. It's still a useful tool. I'm still using it. The next one I'm gonna mention is going to be for all the AI fans of the chat. Basically, if you love AI writing tools, but you're like, well, I wish I could just have it anytime I write anywhere on the internet. Well, this extension does exactly that. It's called Wordtune. It gives you, it doesn't really write for you, but rather it rewrites for you. So if I write a mistake, if I write anything, I can then highlight it. It's going to give me like 3 to 5 versions of basically better written, higher engagement version of what I said, which is very handy, especially if you're a non-native speaker on like social media, for example, or if you, even when you're writing web pages, like you're writing your call to actions, for example, it's kind of handy to use that. They give you 20 rewrites per day, which is, I think, it's not going to write articles for you, but as a utility in your browser, it's probably good enough. So you don't really have to pay for it, provided you have enough of that. And I quite like it. I think. Have
you been using that for your recent Twitter threads then, or?
A little bit, but not as much, to be honest. Mostly because I write directly in Twitter. I'm not on. I have an app for Twitter. I don't have I don't do it in browser. But if I was in, maybe I should do it in browser actually, now that you say that. But yeah, it's like when I write emails, for example, things like that, I actually use it. It's quite handy. The next one is going to be SimilarWeb's SimilarSite extension. And that one is probably for the people who kind of like skip on Ahrefs as well these days, because Ahrefs has a similar functionality where when you go on a site, you click on this extension, it's going to give you all the similar websites to it. So if you go on Authority Hacker, you get, Niche Pursuits, Madigity, and everyone, Income School, and so on. It's like it's going to find all the similar competitors, and it's quite handy when you're doing keyword research / competitor research, because you take these competitors, then you look at all the keywords they rank for, then you look at their competitors, then you look at all the keywords they rank for, and eventually you map all the keywords in your industry. And so that extension can make it significantly faster. If you use that together with like the free version of Ubersuggest, etc., like you can do keyword research for very cheap. It's just like a lot more cumbersome than if you use a tool like Ahrefs. You pay for the convenience really, but that data is really quite handy actually. So I quite like it. The next one, a lot of people know about it, is Buffer. So Buffer is like it's a free social media scheduler, provided you only have like 3 profiles and 20 posts that you can queue on the free version. But to be honest, if you're casually social media sharing, it's plenty. So again, I like the idea that everything's free in this list basically. So it's pretty much the best free social sharing tool that I found out there that works quite seamlessly, works on your phone as well and everywhere. So highly recommend it, but you know what your social media scheduler is. I think that's it actually.
Let's do this inspect element thing.
Okay, that's pretty much
the
it.
Bonus thing or whatever.
So that's pretty much it for the actual extensions, but I think a lot of people don't even know how to use Chrome properly. And I just wanted to take 2 seconds to tell you that you should really learn how to use the options that when you right-click anywhere, you click on Inspect, and it opens that big menu on the right where you see the HTML code, the CSS, etc. There is a lot of things you can do there, like capturing colors of elements, like finding the size of elements as well, like how wide should your images be when you upload on your site? If you don't know that, if you right-click in your content area and you scroll down all the way at the bottom CSS section, you will actually find how big your container is, how wide it is, and you'll know exactly the right size to make your images to get better page speed, for example. And you don't need an extension for that. You can just use the options in Chrome. You can also find fonts as well. You can even edit pages. And like you can write in the code on the right and it edits the page. Actually, a lot of people who do fake screenshots of SEO, a lot of people do that, to like sell stuff, etc. they do that. They go in this thing, they change the number in Ahrefs, they put like 5 million visitors, and they take a screenshot. It looks like the original interface of Ahrefs, and they'll just be like, oh my God, you should buy my whatever I'm selling, my tool or something, to do that. So it's like you can actually, but that's quite handy not to scam people, but rather to visually change the website that you want to, like, do something that you want to change. And usually I take a screenshot, show it to my dev, and then the dev does it for me. It's kind of like much easier visually to show to devs what you want rather than describing it with words, which tends to lead to confusion. You don't always get what you want, etc. So in general, I want to say like Chrome itself is really powerful in terms of dev tools, and you should really learn how to use all of this. You can run your Core Vitals tests on it as well. If you go in the Lighthouse section, for example, you can run the full test there. You don't need to go to another app and so on. The console will show you all the errors that you have on your site, what did not load and so on. Be a little bit careful because some of these errors might be due to your Chrome extensions. It might not. So when you check the console, check it in incognito without extensions. And this way you'll be able to tell what resources are not loading properly and so on. And these could be issues with your page speed and so on. So overall, extensions are great, but I think learning how to use Chrome as well is something that a lot of SEOs should do. Do you want to add something to that, Mark?
Nope.
Okay. Okay. Any final words of wisdom then?
No final words of wisdom.
No final words of wisdom. Well, okay. Well, then thank you for joining, guys. We hope you picked up at least 1 or 2 cool extensions from this podcast. And we'll see you again in 2 weeks for another episode. Bye.